We're in hard times and some of us are going to need a lawyer. And if you need a lawyer, don't just react to a TV commercial. Get a copy of the Lawyers Consumer Directory, which is available absolutely free of charge at any 7-Eleven store throughout Central Florida. The Lawyers Consumer Directory is going to give you real hardcore knowledge on how to hire a lawyer and a lot of information on issues like bankruptcy, foreclosure, and more. Get the Lawyers Consumer Directory. It's absolutely free of charge at any 7-Eleven throughout Central Florida.
The Christian Star began as a newspaper whose news focus of interest was of Christians, but it's become a lot more than that, covering issues of concerns to our community, covering issues of national, state, local, and political agendas that affect us today. The Christian Star is available free at any 7-Eleven store. So pick up your copy of the Christian Star Bilingual free at 7-Eleven today.
Ahora puedes demostrar tu orgullo hispano mientras manejas en la carretera con la nueva tablilla o placa de auto hispana conmemorando los 500 años del descubrimiento de Florida por Juan Ponce de León.
Obtén tu tablilla hispana este año y harás la diferencia.
Solo 1,000 se necesitan para hacerla permanente.
Su donativo ayudará a estudiantes con becas.
Nuestra comunidad se beneficiará con más programas y servicios.
Resalta nuestra cultura, nuestras raíces.
Demostremos que en la unión está la fuerza.
Obtén tu tablilla hispana en el Departamento de Vehículos de Motor más cercano o llama hoy al 321-277-0850.
¿Necesitas un abogado? Detente. No contrates un abogado simplemente por haberlo visto en un anuncio comercial. Lawyers Consumer Directory te ofrece la solución para todo tipo de problemas legales, tales como inmigración, bancarrota, divorcios, entre otros. Y hasta te ayuda a cómo contratar un abogado. No te rompa la cabeza buscando la solución cuando la tienes en tus manos. Adquiérelo gratis, sí, absolutamente gratis en cualquier 7-Eleven.
Hi, this is Danny Ramos. Welcome to Hispanic Speak Out TV, brought to you every week on Bright House Cable, Channel 49. We've been on the air for the past 9 years, bringing you issues of interest about Hispanics that work in Central Florida. And this is my co-host, Monica. How are you doing, Monica?
Good, and you?
And we're here with Teresa Moreno, and he is the president of the Farmworkers Association?
Farmworkers Association of Florida. I'm the general coordinator.
The general coordinator. And you've been doing that for how long, Teresa?
Well, I've been, since we founded the organization almost 30 years ago.
Okay.
I have been in that position. Before that, I was a migrant farm worker.
Okay.
For 13 years, I started as a teenager.
Wow.
Harvesting fruits and vegetables.
Here in Central Florida?
Yes, we used to work here, and then during the summer, we used to migrate to the northern states, live, and then come back again to, for next season. Usually we come back in December for the winter season.
Okay. Since you've been here for so long, you've been here, 30 years, what is the major differences that you see with the farm workers from 30 years ago to now? Have things actually changed, or is it still, for 30 years have gone by and we're still in the same place?
Some things has changed for good and some for bad. We have been able to get some changes on the laws. Some of the laws change for protection for the workers, but we still have a lot of problems of lack of enforcement of the laws, and not all the rights. The farm workers don't have the same rights as other workers. We have been able to do some things, but not enough to put them at the same level as other workers.
Like, for example, when you say that they don't have the same rights, give me an example of that.
Well, the farm workers in most of the states, except for California, they're not included in the right to organize federal law.
Okay. And why is that? I mean, if people have the right to organize, why can't farm workers organize?
Well, the ones that are interested in the farm workers not being able to organize are the employers. The employers always fighting for not allow allowed that to happen. They spend more money on protecting themselves to not allow organizing happen in our communities than they spend paying the workers. So they spend a lot of money, yes, defending themselves against any organizing efforts.
How do the workers get paid?
They get paid by the piece in most of the cases, very low piece rates. I'm going to use the biggest product they have in Florida, we have in Florida, is citrus. You get paid about $7 for close to 1,000 pounds of citrus. Wow. You know, you have to pick it. In order to pick it, you got to climb up on the ladders and go and get it off of the trees and put them in a container. I mean, very, very heavy work. The workers have the right to minimum wage in most of the cases, not always. Okay. Not all of the farm workers are entitled to make the minimum wage. But in many cases, because the employers, the labor contractors, the crew leaders keep track of the hours worked. Usually they do what they, you know, what helps them. Okay. I mean, they make up the numbers to make it look like the workers are making the minimum wage. Mm-hmm. So that's a common practice among them, and it's very difficult because there are later on the groves working or in the fields, and the inspector, the enforcers, don't come to check on them unless they have a complaint. Guess what? The workers are not going to complain because the crew leaders threaten them.
They get fired.
They get fired. Mm-hmm. They get, you know, ridiculized. They get, you know, all kinds of things.
Are a large portion, or what portion, if any, of the farm workers are here as undocumented?
They're not exact numbers, but everybody says more than half. I'll say more than 3/4 of the farm workers are undocumented.
And is that one of the reasons why there's no enforcement?
Yes and no. The farm workers not always have been undocumented. Mm-hmm. As you probably know, before I came into this country, the farm workers were black and white. They were poor whites from the Appalachian region, or they were African Americans from other states in the South. And still we had problems. Later on, we had undocumented people, and then we had an immigration reform in the 80s, and we had documented people, and you know, things were the same. It changed, somehow it changed a little bit. When the workers are documented, that helps. There's more complaints. When they're undocumented, they're more conditioned. They don't complain. They're threatened by employers. They can move around easy as if you have documents. So being documented, the farm worker workforce being documented, that will help. That will help, I would say, a lot, because the workers don't feel as threatened as they do when they're undocumented.
So should they be legalized first, now that they're talking about immigration law?
Yes, we believe that they should be legalized. That would make them less vulnerable.
Wages would be higher, you think? Or they would be paid hourly instead of by the pound?
Well, additional to documented the farm workers, you know, legalize them, as you say, there have to be improvements done in the fields. The employers have to pay more so they can have a more stable workforce.
So you're saying the employers will be against legalization?
I think
because
they are.
It will cost them more money.
Yeah, then they would have to pay them more.
I think they are on our side now, because there are also a lot of pressures about, you know, why they have to be hiring undocumented workers. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I think they are, not all of them, but most of them are, I mean, publicly, at least publicly, they're saying they're on our side to get legalization for the farm workers or for the immigrants.
Mm-hmm. Here's a question that a lot of people are talking about, especially on the Republican side. The Republicans feel that the border should be closed before giving the people here legal amnesty. They want to seal the border because they're afraid that if they give amnesty, hundreds of thousands of people are going to come across the border. So they want to close the border. Do you think the border can be secured to the level that people are talking about, or that to prevent people from crossing over?
They have done a lot in regard to protecting the border. They invested a lot. They had done defense. They had put a lot more resources. Yeah, a lot more Asians. They had done a lot, and the people who come in has kind of been reduced in the last few years. I think they had done enough. I mean, they got to do other things. Right now, people still coming. Sometimes they're the same ones that they're sending back. They're coming back to be with their families, because they're separating families. They are deporting, head of the household, the one that get out to go to work, and they arrest them and they deport them, and then they want to come back to join their families.
Yes.
How do farm workers more, on a political system, on the sensitivity factor, are they more Democratic for the Democratic Party or the Republican Party?
The farm workers.
Yeah.
They're not allowed to vote.
No, but I'm saying the sensitivity. Everybody's politically sensitive. You know what I mean? Everybody's politically
sensitive. Which way they sway? That's pretty much what
the Mexican Americans are more, and the Central Americans are more Democrats.
Okay.
Instead of Republican.
Now Puerto Ricans.
Puerto Ricans are
what are they?
I'm neutral, so
Puerto Ricans.
I'm going to say that I'm neutral.
I think that off the top of my head, without looking at any numbers, I think 75% Democrat, 25% Republican. Okay, except for my co-host Jose Miranda, who's not sure what he is, But we're going to hear from him in a little while to find out, because I'm sure he's
going to. But the issue of
about
immigration, all the Latinos, including the Cubans, are on our side, right?
Yeah.
And
I would say yes.
Because of the
I would say.
law.
Well, look at I would say 80%. I would say 80% is pro legalization or amnesty.
Right. I mean.
It's to their benefit.
I assume
they're going to go the way they feel.
I assume that almost 80% of the Latinos that voted for Obama probably is because of the position on immigration reform, right?
Where do the oranges go? Once you're here in Central Florida, I have no idea. You guys pick how much oranges are picked in Central Florida? I have no idea. Like you were talking about, they get paid $7 a ton.
Millions of boxes.
And where do they go? Do they,
well,
supermarket chains buy them?
Look, I have to tell you that 80% of the orange use, not 80%, 80% plus the other probably 80% they import from Brazil.
Yes,
because
heard that.
They tell you that orange juice is from Florida, but they are allowed to bring in 49% of concentrate from another country, which in this case is Brazil. So 80% of the use that this country consumes under the two brands, Minute Maid and Tropicana, which is Coke and Pepsi, they're the owners.
Correct.
Yep, 80% of the use is produced by them, so they end up in the U.S. They also export a lot of that use.
But they also do strawberry fields here also, not just oranges.
I mean, we have a lot of tomatoes.
Tomatoes, that's right.
Then we have a lot of strawberries. We have all kinds of vegetables. We used to be, before the free trade agreements in the last 20 years, that more than half of the fruit and vegetables consumed in the U.S. During the winter were produced in Florida.
Okay.
But that has been changing because of the importation.
Okay. So what happens if they if they get rid of all the people working who are here illegally? There's no more orange juice.
Produce goes up.
No, there's no more.
Price goes up.
There are more vegetables, the more fresh fruits. I mean, we have 300,000 farm workers in Florida.
300,000. That's seasonal, though, right?
Seasonal. Most of the stuff is seasonal, and 200 of them probably are fruit and vegetables. Harvesters and packers, etc. And the other 1/3 is ornamental industry workers.
Now, those 300,000 are all at state of Florida?
Excuse me?
The 300,000. The 300,000 in the state of Florida?
They would be here during the peak of the seasons, like right now when there's no more farm work in other states. They be here. During the summer, for several more months, they leave Florida. 3/4 of them leave Florida.
And where do they go?
They go to different states
to work.
Usually the East Coast, but they also, believe it or not, end up sometimes in the West Coast, up in Washington State, California. But the most common thing is to go along the eastern part of the United States, or the middle, the mid-east, is that mid-east?
Central United States, yeah.
Do you have any events coming up that you want to talk about, that you want to announce?
Yes. First, related to immigration reform, we're doing town hall meetings in the farmworkers communities. We had done some, but this coming Thursday, it's a town hall meeting in Sebring, about 100 miles from here, right in the middle of the citrus production area in the south part of Central Florida. It's going to be in a social hall there called Bravo, and it's going to start at 7 p.m.
Okay.
That is one of a series of town hall meetings we have.
If you can,
give us a list, we'll put it on our website.
Exactly.
The show. And
okay,
so
well,
people are aware.
Yeah, when send us the information, we'll put it on the website, and we'll email it out to everybody.
Let me tell you about other events.
Okay.
We're starting a immigrants caravan this coming Friday in Haines City, right here in Polk County. In the afternoon of I think it's gonna be at 3, and at 11 and at 3. It's gonna be the beginning of a caravan that's gonna go across Central and South Florida. It's gonna end up in Miami 10 days later. So.
To bring awareness
it starts right there, right here on Apopka. They're going to stop on Monday night at 7.
Okay.
So this coming Monday night.
Let's put it all on the website, okay, Tirso?
Sure. One more thing. We have our 30-year anniversary celebration.
When is
It's going to be March 17 in Apopka.
Okay.
It's going to be a statewide.
Am I being invited?
Yes, you're being invited.
Okay.
March 17th in Apopka. Okay.
Yes,
the 30-year
March
anniversary.
17th.
Okay.
Big event.
We're going to be there. We're going to be there.
Great.
Lots of food.
I'm going to come.
Produce.
Are you kidding? I'm going to come. We're out of time. This is Danny Ramos on Hispanic Speak Out. Do not go away, because we have our second segment coming in with Jose Miranda and co-host Daisy, who's you know her. She's been here many times before. All right, break time. We'll see you later. Thank you, Tirso.
You're welcome.
We're in hard times, and some of us are going to need a lawyer. And if you need a lawyer, don't just react to a TV commercial. Get a copy of the Lawyers Consumer Directory, which is available absolutely free of charge at any 7-Eleven store throughout Central Florida. The Lawyers Consumer Directory is going to give you real hardcore knowledge on how to hire a lawyer, and a lot of information on issues like bankruptcy, foreclosure, and more. Get the Lawyers Consumer Directory. It's absolutely free of charge at any 7-Eleven throughout Central Florida.
The Christian Star began as a newspaper whose news focus of interest was of Christians, but it's become a lot more than that, covering issues of concerns to our community, covering issues of national, state, local, and political agendas that affect us today. The Christian Star is available free at any 7-Eleven store. So pick up your copy of the Christian Star Bilingual free at 7-Eleven today.
Welcome back to our next segment. I'm Jose Miranda, along with my co-host Daisy Aros, and our topic is going to be the immigration issue, which is still looming in Washington. An election was held, and I'm sure most of you were there. You waited in line long enough to be there to cast your vote, and the president, Barack Obama, was elected, and he won the Hispanic and Latino vote by about 75%, which caused a great ripple effect within the Republican Party, because now they had to do something. They could no longer ignore the questions out there. And you know, as late or as early as August of last year, the way to handle immigration, according to the powers that be, was to self-deport. Just get up and leave Dodge, basically. And now we find ourselves in the middle of a revolution, you might say, of proportions that something's going to affect everything all along the ways here. So we have 11 million people who are undocumented in this country. How do you feel self-deportation is a way out of the situation?
Well, self-deportation wouldn't make any sense. This immigration reform right now is a hot topic only because the Republicans are pretty much scared. They're scared at the fact that if in fact we allow the majority of these undocumented immigrants to become citizens, they're eligible to vote. You're talking about a big percent of Hispanic Latino population.
Right.
Who do you think would be voting for? The majority of them are Democrats. I'm not going to say all, but the majority of them.
Right.
So they are continuously knocking Obama's bill for no reason. They know that this is the most logical thing to do. You have immigrants in the States that have been here for many years. Why not allow them to become citizens and have them pay taxes? Why not do that?
Well, currently we have 5 or 6 senators who have come to the forefront, and John McCain being one of them, Marco Rubio being another, okay, who normally would be beefing on the other side as to, for lack of a better word.
When you say beefing, you mean against one another?
Against one another,
okay.
and not joining, you know, the Democrats on this issue. And they have proposed a path forward, but it's based on secure borders.
But do you really think securing the borders will stop the immigrants from coming in?
They don't have enough men. We have a 2,000
Tightening up the borders is not a solution in this given scenario. There are too many immigrants.
We have drone planes that guard it. Okay,
right,
we
but
have
there are
soldiers.
too many immigrants trying to come in because of the economic stimulation that they think the United States has.
Right.
You know, coming from a country that, for instance, at one point the United States, instead of allowing these countries to stabilize or be sustainable for their own people, what they were doing is they were giving money to the military. So these countries that are now having all these individuals looking for a better way of life are bombarding the United States, and they're going to find every which way they can to come in here.
Right.
So tightening up the borders is not going to stop that.
This is a Republican point that they wanted to have, a secure border. According to McCain himself, he's indicated that it would take over 1 million soldiers just to guard the border to prevent that, which under the current crisis that we find ourselves will be totally impossible.
Which I'm glad you brought up that point, because the fiscal climate, they actually stopped deporting a lot of people because of the fiscal situation we were in. I kind of did some research, and about 100 people have been that have been detained have been released. Some of them coming from Florida, New Jersey, Texas, New Orleans, Arizona, Alabama, Georgia, New York. So what is that telling you? That is telling you that the government here in the United States, they are rationalizing the fact that some of these people are not going to really cause any harm being here. So why are we wasting all this money to deport these people? Let's focus on the real criminals, on real offenders, and let's send those people back, because really, we don't want criminals in the United States.
Well, on that issue, they're being released. They're being released because about budget concerns and the monies that are going to be cut within the next few days or in weeks.
Which we are still in a fiscal crisis. There is no money.
On the other hand, the thing is, most of those people picked up, allegedly, you only get picked up and detained because you have a criminal background or you've done something.
In some states. In other states, if let's say there's an employer who actually hires a undocumented individual and the company gets audited or gets in trouble with the law, they actually take those individuals and they come in big cars. They take all the illegal immigrants and they put them in those deportation stations. That is a known fact. A lot of employers, you know, who want to save money, they hire a lot of the immigrants that are undocumented. But right now, at this point, what I'm saying is the United States realizes that why are we wasting so much money on things that are minute to the big problem? Give the people that have been here for more than 5 years visas. Give them visas. Let them pay taxes. They're already here working.
But they already do pay taxes. They pay mostly in cash, okay? And that's cash money going into a weak market. And they do it all the time.
We do not know this for a fact, okay? We're talking about FICA. We're talking about federal taxes. We're talking about an actual pay stub, an actual paycheck that you hand over to someone that's working and see all that money allocated to where it needs to go. If you're paying cash, you don't know where that money is allocated to.
Well, that's really up to the merchant they're purchasing and to cooperate
but what I'm saying is,
and take that money and put it in the right place.
If you're not a documented citizen, you cannot pay taxes legally. So, you know, getting back to, you know,
so you like the idea that they should pay allegedly some back taxes, that they should wait in line, and they should go to the end of the food chain, so to speak, in order for them to be classified as citizens.
Well, how is that any different than the backlog that they have right now? There's a huge backlog of people that have actually filled out applications that are still waiting to get visas. So how would that be any different? They would just be another number in that backlog. That backlog is so huge that they're finding that in order to expedite and actually fiscally beneficial, they're giving temporary visas to a lot of these people.
Which they should.
Okay, exactly, and that's my point. So I don't understand what the big dilemma is. I mean, I do understand why the Republican, you know, in Congress is making it difficult. Again, Obama has a plan, and because he's the first black president, let's just make it difficult for the first black president. If these immigrants are already here, allow them the opportunity to become citizens.
Okay, yeah, but the downside of that is we have 11 million of them, and what's to stop another 50 million to come in across the borders?
But we can start with the DREAM Act. The DREAM Act are children who are actually attending public schools, who are children of the undocumented immigrants. Let's start with that section. And then let's work, you know, maybe people that actually, you know, get sponsored by employers, because I know for a fact there are employers that they sponsor undocumented immigrants. So then we can do that little group. You know, everything is a process. And what I'm saying is that we need to take this process, which is the immigration reform, seriously, and we need to get it done and get it done today.
Well, on that note, we've come to the end of our segment. We want to thank you for joining us. We'll be here next week, same time, same channel, Tuesdays 9:30. And we'll see you soon on behalf of us. We'll see you later.
Bye.
Ahora puedes demostrar tu orgullo hispano mientras manejas en la carretera con la nueva tablilla o placa de auto hispana conmemorando los 500 años del descubrimiento de Florida por Juan Ponce de León.
Obtén tu tablilla hispana este año y harás la diferencia.
Solo 1000 se necesitan para hacerla permanente.
Su donativo ayudará a estudiantes con becas.
Nuestra comunidad se beneficiará con más programas y servicios.
Resalta nuestra cultura, nuestras raíces.
Demostremos que en la unión está la fuerza.
Obtén tu tablilla hispana en el Departamento de Vehículos de Motor más cercano o llama hoy al 321-277-0850.